If you are like me, the fall means breaking out the soups again, and that's what we're gonna do over the next couple days. I am going to give you 10 yummy soups. And so the first thing that I'm gonna do in this video is I'm going to make a French bread, just a quick, easy French bread, just with regular basic flour, all-purpose flour. I'm using unbleached all-purpose flour. You can use what you have at home. Simple, just a couple ingredients in it. French bread. I'm also going to do that with a gluten-free. The gluten-free, I used to have this pan that I could put it into, and that worked a lot better. I need to find an alternative solution, but you'll notice it comes out okay. It tastes delicious. Oh my goodness, it tastes so good. I am trying to go gluten-free. I have another, some people in the house also, but this right here, see my eczema? It's directly related to gluten, unfortunately. So, yeah, I need to get better about it, clear up my hands. Let's see what delicious soups we are going to make today. Not only are soups so yummy, so comforting, so warm, they're also cheap. And with feeding 15 people on a daily basis, we love to throw a lot of cheap in our mix. So that's one reason that I cook a lot of soups. I love them thick, I love them hearty with some crusty bread or any type of bread, corn rolls, whatever. Yes, we love soups. It is a great way to stretch your food and your budget. So let's see what we can come up with. Okay, whenever making soups, you usually want some sort of bread product. I am going to do 2 of these. One of these is going to be just regular flour and the other is going to be gluten-free. So I am doing 2.5 cups of water. And then I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of yeast to that. I like using these, if you can find them. I usually get them at Sam's Club, and it's just a lot cheaper to buy yeast like that. They come in like freeze-dried bricks. So I'm going to do 2 tablespoons. Then I'm going to add to that 3 tablespoons of sugar. Add 1/3 cup of oil. And then I'm going to add 3 cups of flour. For oil, I use either avocado, olive, or melted coconut oil. You can use whatever you want to use. This is not like a sandwich loaf. This loaf will be like a French bread or a crusty bread, something like that. So we're starting with 3 cups of flour. I'm going to turn this on for a minute. Okay, now I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of salt. And then some more flour. So let's do maybe 3 more cups of flour and see how that looks. You want it to kind of still be sticky, not too dry. Let's see where we're at. Okay, now I'm going to take this bowl here and I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of oil in this and rub it around. So I'm doing this in the morning and I'm just going to make this an all-day process for us. And now I'm going to take my dough and plop it in there. There we go. Now I'm going to cover this over with a hot towel. And then I'm gonna make the other one. For our household, no one actually has celiac disease, so it's okay for us to mix like this with this. There's just a little bit of flour here and there. We don't have any issue with it in our household. So I'm adding 2.5 cups of water. Then I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of yeast. little more. There we go. Didn't quite get the tops on that one. Then I need 3 tablespoons of sugar. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to add a 1/3 cup of oil. And then I am just using some gluten-free flour. I'm going to use this brand. Oh, can you guys see it? This brand here. So I'm going to start off with 3 cups of the flour. Woo, there's more than, that was 1.5. Other one. And another half. Let's do it like that. Okay, now let's turn that on. Now I'm going to add a tablespoon of salt. And then I'm going to add flour until it's the right consistency. I find gluten-free tends to absorb more, so I usually need less. Scrape in here and then like evaluate where we're at with it and go from there. Because if you do too much, then it's just going to become really dense. I just scraped the bowl again and tried that. As you can tell, this one's a little bit more sticky. This is the consistency of this, but it's pulling away clean. So that's what I'm looking for when I'm doing this. So I'm going to take this and put it in a grease bowl. I find spatulas really helpful, especially with gluten-free things. I used to make a sorghum sourdough bread, and a spatula was key to it. Now, if I need to add more flour later, that can be a later thing. I don't want to add too much because it is going to absorb more while it's sitting. So I'm just going to let this be the way that it is here for about an hour. So this had the warm cloth over it. Look at that. It has been about an hour. This is my regular dough. Just gonna punch that down. And then I'm gonna take this and reheat it with some warm water. Let's check out the gluten-free one. So it's not as big as the other one, but do you see that it has risen? And then we are going to take, I have a spatula somewhere. So I lost my spatula. I am going to just take it like that, and same thing, cover it back over. Actually, at this point, I think just feeling this, I'm gonna add a little bit more flour. So remember, this is the gluten-free flour. This is the gluten-free flour, and we're just gonna add that in. Open it, yeah.
3:38.
Okay, come in, please. Okay, that looks about good. And cover it over again. Throw a little bit of oil on the counter here. And here is my bowl. This is the third rise. So I'm just gonna punch it down, toss it out. I'll cut this in half. And then we're gonna make some French bread onto my very loved pan. And then I'll just take a knife. Doop, 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 doop. There we go. Now we'll do another one. I had not made this before with the gluten-free. This is how it came out. We'll see how it actually bakes. But these are the 2 loaves of the regular bread. I'm gonna let them rise for a little bit and then I'll pop them in. The bread is actually really good. I just feel like I need one of those pans that you can put the loaves into and it would come out better. This is the gluten-free one. The other one's really good. That one's always good. There is something just warm and comforting about a soup, especially in the fall. It's like you're all snuggled down, you're getting ready to bring fall on, and you just want something warm and cozy. So here we are just cutting up and dicing the vegetables. So I'm going to dice some onions and carrots and potatoes. That is a great base for any soup, honestly. So I love making soups, especially in the fall and winter time. On the winter time, I used to put them on top of my wood stove. It is also such a good way to save money. I mean, you can literally make a whole pot of soup for so cheap. We're talking about like servings under $1 a piece for people. So it's a great way to stretch your dollar when you are having a large family or just wanting to stretch your dollar, because we all need meals that can stretch our dollar nowadays. So I have a couple of my recipes for soup that I'm going to be making this week, and 2 of them have this type of beans. So I'm making one of the soups today, and one of my recipes today is calling for these beans. So I am going to cook up a big batch of them, use it today, and then just put the rest in a bowl in the fridge for later use, and I'll share that with you later. So all I'm doing is just I have 4 pounds of beans in here, and then I am going to fill this about 1.5 inches to 2 inches above the beans with water, and then cook this for 55 minutes. So I did about 6 potatoes, maybe 8 carrots. I'm cutting up this onion. Try not to cry, so I'm glad that you just see the onion and not me winking at my onion. Let's put this in the pot. I'm going to be making chicken later, so I'm just going to use 2 of my chicken breasts for this. Just going to dice it up into bite-sized pieces. So I'm just going to take this chicken here and plop it right in my pot. So I have the potatoes, the onions, the carrots, now the chicken diced in here, and then I'll add some seasonings. Okay, so I'm just going to add, this is my home canned garlic. It's just garlic and oil. So I'm gonna add quite a bit of this. We like garlic in our household, so we're gonna add some of that. And then I'm going to add some thyme and basil. As you can tell, some of this is from our garden, and we just crumple it up and put it in the jars that are store-bought. And then oregano. Okay, so I just turned that on. Sorry, I had got a phone call. So I just turned that on, stirring this. I'm going to give it just a quick stir for a minute, and then we're going to add some broth. I like to cook any soups like this if I'm able to, just for a minute, because I find that when you are like searing the items together, it just like blends all the seasonings together. Now, I've been trying to use this up as well. I bought it a few years ago. It's probably past expiration, but I'm going to use it anyway. There we go. Just going to give it a little more flavor. My daughter ran downstairs to grab me some broth. Add a can of these tomatoes. You could add 2 cans. It just depends on your family. I have some people that don't like tomatoes, so if they see them, they'll try to pick or eat around them, but I think it gives a nice flavor. And then I'm going to open some of my home canned broth and throw that in there. And then I'm going to cover this and let it just cook for about 10 minutes, and then we'll come back to this. If we had smell-o-vision, this smells so good. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I have the 1 quart of broth in there. I am going to add to that another quart of water. Gorgeous. So we have the chicken in there, we have the potato, the carrot, all the flavors in there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add, I bought these a while ago and I didn't want to just use them plain. So I think what I'm going to do, you can get those at Sam's Club. It is like rice ramen noodles. And I'm just going to break some of these in here. You could also use like mini shells or anything that you prefer. I'm going to add, let's see, I'll do 2 and then I'll stir it. Yeah, I think that'll be okay. I'm going to add a little more water though. So another quart of water in there, and then I'm going to cover this over and let it cook for a minute. See what it looks like. I know this lid doesn't go to that pan. Looking good. All right, I'm going to shut this off, and then we're just going to throw some beans in it after. Okay, we got the beans, so I'm just going to dangerously throw a couple spoonfuls of beans in here. I'll probably get YouTube saying that I need to copyright my humming. All right, let's see. Let's see how much that is. Ooh, that's perfect. Oh, that looks so yummy, guys. Look at that. That is gorgeous. Yum. Alrighty, let's do a Catalina soup. So what I'm going to do is just take my big pot here, and then I am going to use some coconut oil. Grabbing my big spoon because we're at the bottom of the coconut oil. Alrighty, then I'm going to take that out of there. I'm going to turn this on. To this, I'm going to add, I have some onions and peppers that got cut up at the beginning of the week when we were making some other things. We just cut the rest of them up. So that made it quick and easy for me to make now. I'm going to saute these for a minute. Let's grab some seasoning. So I am going to add a tablespoon of salt. I'm going to add some garlic. I home do some garlic and oil, so that's all this is. So we're going to throw garlic and oil in here. Enough that it's gonna taste super yummy, which for our family, that's a lot. All right, now we are going to grab some sage, some pepper, and we're gonna let this cook up for a minute before we add some beans. So now this is ready like this. I am going to add a bunch of about 3 pounds of beans. That is that. Now we are going to stir these in. There we go. And now I'm going to add some chicken broth. So 1, 2, I'm gonna let that cook for a little bit. So this has been cooking all those yumminess in here, and then I'm just gonna add a little splash of milk, maybe about a cup or so, just to add. Ooh, the steam is making it. The steam was making it so it wasn't going well. Yum, that's so yummy. These are 2 of the breads here, and then the gluten-free bread here. Good morning, it's another day. We are getting ready to go to the museum, and I am going to just throw together a quick soup. We're gonna eat that before we go, and then we'll head out. So this morning I'm gonna make a taco soup. I had some salsa that didn't can, so we're gonna use that as kind of like our base to this soup so we can make it quick, easy, and cheap. So items I have here is 1 pound of this, come out of the thing, turkey sausage, breakfast sausage. You can use any meat that you want. Black beans that I cooked the other day, 2 jars of salsa, 1 small thing of pinto beans, a thing of cabbage, 2 cans of diced tomatoes, and my very last cans of corn. So first we're just gonna plop that sausage in the pan, and then I'm gonna open up the rest of my jars and smash that up. While this is cooking, helps if I turn it on. While this is cooking, I will just open up my jars. If I had onions and peppers regular and it wasn't in a salsa, then I would add that to this right now, but I'm adding salsa after, so I'm not going to have it until this is cooked. But if you're doing it this way, you could do onions and peppers in here. So I'm pretty much dumping everything, the beans, the cabbage, which I kind of pushed out, and the corn into this strainer here. Then I'm going to grab the black beans and do the same with that. Not sure how much of these I'm going to actually use, but I'll dump some in. These were just cooked the day before yesterday, and I put them in this bin. I'm going to use part of it for here and then part of it for a different soup. So let's just rinse this all off. Trying to get all that extra starch off them. Yes, I have them. Goodness, that was steaming a bit. All right, so I'm adding some taco seasoning. Normally, honestly, this is just from a bag, and I dump it into these containers so it's a little bit easier to use. So I'm going to add, I don't know, maybe 1/4 of a cup. Look, it's all stuck together. Alrighty, now I am going to add some water, and then I can put it back on. I had to take it off of the heat because it was so steamy. And then I'm going to cook this for a couple minutes and add some. So as you can see, this looks really dark. So it's actually more taco seasoning than you would put just on that 1 pound of meat. But we're going to add a bunch of stuff in here, so it will just season the whole soup. So I have home canned salsa, which did not actually can appropriately. I have 2 of these. I'm going to add both of them to this mix. And I decided not to use the diced tomatoes because there's so much salsa with the tomatoes in it. I think it will be wonderful just with all of those tomatoes. See all the tomatoes in those? So my salsa has zucchini, it has onions, it has peppers, it has tomatoes, it has carrots in there. So we have a bunch of vegetables in there, along with some seasoning, cumin, chili powder, and I am going to also add all of these vegetables that we just rinsed off, which is cabbage and corn and 2 types of beans. So we're going to scrape this out, stir all this together. Look at that, looking good, looking good. Now I am going to add some home canned beef broth. Alrighty, so we're gonna take this and I'm just gonna add 2 quarts of beef broth to it. This right here is the fat from the beef broth. I always keep mine in. I think fat gives a lot more flavor. Gonna break this. See y'all. There we go. Get all that fat in there. I know I used the end of the spoon to break that. It will all be okay, guys. So I'm just gonna let this cook down like this. I'm gonna cover it and then I'm gonna turn it on low. And my daughter is making, my 11-year-old is making some just Jiffy Bar. Our gorgeous taco soup is bubbling away. And I am just going to put this into our bowl. And then usually what I do is I put the there we go. Gorgeous, guys, gorgeous. So you could have this with chips. You could have this with whatever you want. We're gonna have cornbread and this taco stuff together. I'll probably grate some cheese to put on top of that. And there you have it. So she just is making these little corn muffin mixes, which each do 6 muffins. So she's gonna do 4 of these. So this will be 1 egg and milk, and it makes your little muffin mix, and it's a perfect activity for younger children to do. And so she's gonna do 4 of those boxes for lunch and supper. Okay, so I have 3 onions in here. I am going to make a black bean soup, and I honestly don't have too much coconut oil up here, or I'd be using that. This is avocado oil. I'm gonna throw some avocado oil in here and just mix this around. I'm gonna cook this down a little bit. So this is how much I have left in my garlic. This is just garlic and oil that I grated up from our garden from last year. So I'm going to dump all of this into here. One thing that I love in my soups, my black bean soup, is garlic. So I need to make sure that I have plenty of that in here. Now I just need to find my spatula. I love the smell of onions. Oh my goodness, I do. Do not like the smell of fish, but I love the smell of onions. Yum. All right, we're gonna cook that. So these are semi-soft. And what I'm going to do is add my seasonings to this first. So about a teaspoon or so of chili powder. I am going to add a bay leaf or some crumples of bay leaf. I'm going to add, you could add a chili pepper, not a chili pepper, a jalapeno pepper. I do not have that. I am adding some red. I am going to add just about that much of red pepper flakes. And then I'm going to add probably 2 teaspoons or so of cumin. Yeah, a little bit more. That would be 2 teaspoons. All right, I'm gonna stir this around for a second. It smells so yummy. Now I'm going to add my black beans. These are just what I had left over. I cooked a little over a pound of black beans, and I put about 2 cups into that taco soup, and then the rest is right here. So we are going to mix all these in. And then get all that seasoning all over the beans. And then I'm going to add those 2 cans that I didn't just use of these diced chilies. Mix those in. Schmoozy all the lovely seasonings in there. And then I'm going to grab 2 quarts of broth. So I'm using chicken broth here. 1 and 2. That one had a beautiful fat layer on it. You can see the fat floating to the top here. And there we go. Now I'm going to add a teaspoon or so, probably like 2 teaspoons of salt. My other pan is boiling over. There we go. So now I'm just gonna stir that in, and I'm gonna cover it, and I will be back in a minute with it. Okay guys, so what I'm going to do to this soup right now is 2 very weird things. So bear with me here. You can have a tablespoon of sugar, and then you can either add milk, cream, sour cream, whatever you want. I am using 2 scoops of yogurt, this yogurt here, and just adding, well, maybe 3. Adding that to it. And now I'm going to stir this in, and it will just bring creaminess to your soup. I turned it off for a minute because the steam was going crazy, but this is the soup. Beautiful. New day. We are going to do a couple other soups. Some of it might be voiceover because it is supper time in my house and people are ready for supper or bed. So we're going to make a lentil soup and something else. So this is just going to be leek and lentil soup. I think these are leeks, but they could just be bunching onions. But leeks are great in this. So is bunching onions. They will both work. So I have this frozen from the garden. I'm going to add some coconut oil here. So it'd be the coconut oil and then the chopped up leeks. Going to add some potatoes and carrots to that. And then I'm also going to add some sausage in there. I had they were called beer bratwurst, and it's 1 package. I think it's 12 ounces, maybe it's 16, and I just chopped that up to add it to it. Okay, so I'm getting my sausage so it's all cooked here. Stirring as I go. If I need to, if it starts sticking to the bottom a little bit, I can throw just a smidge of water in there. Just so it doesn't burn to the bottom. Then I'm going to add some seasonings into this. Need some salt. Probably 2 teaspoons or so of salt. I'm going to add some cumin. I'll probably use about 2 teaspoons of cumin as well. Maybe 3 teaspoons, maybe a whole tablespoon of cumin. I'm going to do a teaspoon of chili powder. Or half a teaspoon, I don't know, about that much. I'm gonna throw that in there. Then mix this all up. Just leave it on the counter, please. Okay. Now what we're gonna do with this, the potatoes are not done, carrots are not all the way done. What I'm doing is I'm going to add some water. So what I'm gonna do is I have these 2 bags of these lentils that I got at Aldi. And we are just going to add those in here. I don't know where my scissors went. So 2 bags of these. They're usually like $1.20 a bag at Walmart and or Aldi. So really inexpensive. I just like to stir it around just to get all my seasonings all over everything. And then I'm going to add in 2 quarts of broth. Ooh, lovely, lovely. Then I'm going to scrape down the sides, stir it in a little bit. And I'm going to plop the cover on. Okay, so I just added 2 more. Woo, here we go, right to the top, right to the top. 2 more quarts of water to this. And this is delicious. Look at that. This is a sausage and lentil soup. It is going to be so yummy. Okay, so this one's going to be like a hamburger soup. This is actually turkey burger or turkey sausage, whatever it was that I got on sale. And I am going to add to that 1 chopped onion. It's already on, so I'm going to be cooking that. I'm going to add some seasonings here. I'm going to add some coconut aminos. If that was open, that would be great. I must have an open one in the cabinet. Here we go. I'm adding coconut aminos to that. I'm going to add a little bit of oil to this because this turkey burger isn't as fat, so you really need something on top of that as well. I'm also going to add some Worcestershire sauce. Probably whatever I have left in here. Wah, wah, wah. All right, let's get some garlic out of the cabinet here. I am going to use garlic salt or garlic, not powder, not garlic salt. And then I will grab a little bit of Italian seasoning. I'm going to add a little bit of paprika. Let us stir this. So I actually had some carrot sticks that looked pretty sad at the end of this week, so I am just using them in this. Okay, so as you can see here, it's made itself its own little gravy, and that is perfect. We're going to add to this some carrots. I'm just going to cook this until it's brown and be back. I just a smidge of water of this because I got sidetracked because I'm a mom and it started to burn to the bottom. So now I'm throwing potatoes in. I'm using 5. Okay, so this is like this. I turned it off because life was happening too fast for me. So I'm going to turn this back on and we are going to be adding some things to this. I am going to add a thing of broccoli to this and 2 things of broth. So broccoli, and then 2 things of broth, and then I'm cooking this pasta separately on the side. So just the 2 broths, and then I'm going to cook it down and see where we're at as the pasta cooks, after the pasta cooks. Okay, so here's the hamburger soup here, and she is going to dump the noodles in there. Let's just stir this all in now. I am going to add a can of tomato paste. And then I'm going to add a quart of, I just used the broth jar and I filled it with water. And we're going to mix this in. And it is almost ready. Once that kind of just melts in, it will be done. So here is our hamburger and broccoli soup. Got all the yummy vegetables in there. If you wanted to, you could have chopped up the broccoli. I'm fine not. Okay, gonna throw some oil, some leeks, and sausage. Let your sister in. I have the oil, I have the leeks, and I have the sausage. And to this, I am going to add about 8 potatoes. Whoop. Oh, it's fine. Yes, I put those in my lid. So then I'm just going to add some chicken broth. I think this sausage was like beer sausage or something like that. So it has a bunch of flavor in it. So I'm not going to add any seasonings at this point aside from salt. I'm just going to add some salt. So I just added some salt in there, and then I'll see how it is later. I'm just going to throw the cover on and let that cook. Okay, so this is the soup here. The potatoes and the sausage are done. Then I'm going to use a little bit of tapioca flour here. You could use just regular flour, that's fine. I'm trying to keep it gluten-free. You could also use cornstarch. Yeah, you use whatever you want. So probably about half of a cup here. I'm gonna mix it in here. And then I'm going to add some milk. You can feel it already, like starting to thicken up. Add a splash left in that container, and then I'm gonna add that's probably good. So probably about half a gallon altogether. And then I'm gonna let this cook and thicken up, and it'll be all set. So there we go. I'm not going to thicken this all the way. It will actually thicken more. I don't want to thicken it too much because I'm actually going to put this in the fridge overnight and then warm this up tomorrow to have for lunch. Okay guys, for today's cheap soup, we are going to do like a broken down pepper, stuffed pepper. Alrighty, I'm going to add some coconut oil in here. Whole bunch of peppers. This is 1 bag of small peppers. I think it's 1 pound. I'm dropping them all over the place. Then we're gonna get 1 onion in here. Then I'm going to use 1 pound of this ground turkey. And we're going to cook this up. Okay, so here is that. That meat is already cooked. I'm going to add some pepper. Maybe like a teaspoon. Then 2 teaspoons of salt. Just a smidge of like a pinch of red pepper flakes. Oops, can't show it to you. There we go. And then I'm going to mix this around. Then I'm just going to add a little bit of tapioca flour. You could use regular flour or whatever you want. Cornstarch, arrowroot, whatever it is. This just happens to be right in front of my face, so I am using it. About 1/4 cup or so, 1/4 to 1/3 of a cup. I'm just going to do it so this is all tossed and done. Then I'm going to add, I made a big pot of rice for a couple different things that I'm doing. And so I have my big pot of rice, and I'm just going to add some rice. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. These are not actual cups. They're kind of like scoops. I'm going to do 5, I think 6. So about 6 to 8 cups of rice. gonna add that in. Then I'm going to add in some, you can add chicken or beef or pork, whatever you want to do. Mine is mystery broth because it's not labeled. So I'm going to add that in and then mix this all around. Like this. I have this much milk left. Let's see. That's what's going in. And then stir this in. While this is warming up, I am going to grate a stick of cheese. So here is the soup, and then I am just going to grab a hefty dose of cheese for this. So this is just about a bar of cheese. So yummy, guys. Look at that. Okay guys, so today I'm going to make 2 soups. Yes, you can hear my throat is like very honky. So I'm going to make 2 soups right now so that we can have them over the next 2 days. So both of these soups are fairly quick and easy, and especially if you have things already prepared or canned up. So I will share with you how I use my canned goods to make these recipes. Okay guys, yes, still have that same pan. So what I'm going to do is add 1 onion. Now we're going to add some, I have oil and garlic together, so we're going to add this in. Quite a bit of it. This has the oil in it, so I'm not going to add any additional oil so it doesn't become too oily, because this has quite a bit on the top. Okay, I have some kale from the summertime that was just bagged up. I'm trying to crumple this up. It was frozen. I'm trying to crumple this up, and I'm going to dump that in there. I don't know. I think I might have to chop it. Okay, so I'm going to add about 3 cups of greens. That's what I had in there. I just chopped it up a little bit more. It depends on what kind of kale you have, how it crumbles. So this was like the larger, like dinosaur type kale. The curly kale, that breaks apart really easy. I am going to add a little bit of oil. Swap that little bit of oil in, and then I'm going to stir this up real quick. Turn it down. Grab some seasonings. I know it's hard to see. So I got about 2 teaspoons of salt. I have about, oops, I need to open this one. I'm going to grab about 2 tablespoons of Italian seasoning. Then I'm trying to use this up. It's a broth base, and I'm going to add probably about 2 tablespoons of that and mix all this together. To that, I'm going to throw in 1 jar of carrots. Then I have 2 home canned jars of meatballs. If you've been with us for a while, you probably watched us can these meatballs together. If you haven't, we canned them a little while back. I can't remember when. But yeah, these are canned meatballs. I'm putting the fat and everything in there. Breaking the fat on the top and then just dumping everything in there. Now I'm going to stir this in. Ooh, lovely, lovely. Now this literally has taken just moments. Now what I'm going to do is grab some broth. You can use beef broth or chicken broth. I am using chicken because it's right here, and I just use that chicken base to give a little more, so I'm adding those in it. And then we still have these, and I want to try to use these up. So what I'm going to do is just kind of break these in half And let's see how many we can put in here. 2, 3. I'm gonna do 4. We'll do 4 of these. These are the rice romaine. Ramen. Why did I say romaine? We're not doing lettuce. We're doing pasta. Okay, I am going to push this down and then throw the pot. I'm gonna add some of the garlic here and chop up an onion. I want to use this. This is just a zucchini that we like have in really tiny pieces. It's from last year in our garden, so over a year old. Yes, it's a little frost burn, but the soup won't know that it's frost burned. So we're just gonna throw it in here with this stuff and let it get some yum on it. And then I'm going to add probably about a tablespoon of salt. I'll do Italian with this too. About 2 tablespoons of that. 1/4 cup of Worcestershire, whatever you call it. Anyway, that's what I'm putting in here. I'm gonna add some potatoes that I cut in here. You could also use canned potatoes. I don't know if I have any here, but I do have fresh potatoes, so I'm going to use these ones. Okay, so this is it here. This is not cooked. The potatoes are not cooked, but the onions are a little soft and the little bits of the greens are already melted down. So now I'm just gonna add other things to this. So I'm gonna add 2 quarts of green beans. These are home canned green beans. I have 1 green and 1 yellow. And then I'm going to grab 2 cans of carrots. 1, 2. So what I do for beef, I know that looks disgusting, is I tend to like just throw a knife and like chop it up a little bit if it's going to be food. 1. And I'm going to do the same thing with the other one I have. Just kind of chop it up right in the jar. If you leave the broth that it's canned in, it actually makes the broth. Okay. That was the rotten jar that he just got like this. I should have cut that one a little bit more. See how there's like these bigger pieces here? I'm just going to bring it over here for a sec and chop it. It did smell so good in here, and then there was a rotten beef that my son brought from the basement. Ugh, gross. Believe me, you know if it's rotten. There we go. Then we're going to stir all that in. So this has actually no broth in it right now. I'm going to probably just add 1 quart of Okay, I'm going to turn this off now, and you can see lovely meatball and pasta soup. Yum.
Yummy 1 pound.
And then this one here, I'm just going to add broth. There we go. Perfect. I'm going to let this cook for probably like 15 minutes.